Okay. Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome to Immersive Sports Science, not bro science. It would be really cool, guys, if you could subscribe down below. If you want to get more information like this, smash the bell, smash the subscribe. What we're going to try and do is talk about strategic planning and how it's used as a sports science graduate and how you can utilize it to help you within this quarantine period we find ourselves in. Now, I've started at 6:30 and I've started this broadcast at 6:30 for a reason. We're going to try and go through, so we got time for clap the carers at the end. However, if we run through that, then I might be putting this down and clapping for a minute or so, but hopefully we'll be finished before that. So what is strategic planning? Strategic planning is an organizational process of defining strategy. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, Adam, but why the hell do I need to know about strategic planning, especially as a sports science graduate, for instance? Well, it can help you making decisions, allocating resources to processes, and basically plan your day out per se, and help you within this new world we're potentially entering in. So that is probably one of the main reasons for strategic planning, especially as a sports science graduate. I know for myself personally, you need to structure how you're going to go and get work, how you define work, how you're going to move ourselves on, because there's a lot of uncertainty. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, especially regarding what can I do as a sports science graduate, or maybe as someone who likes fitness. What can I do in order to improve my chances to get work? Maybe you've been laid off, for instance. Maybe you've been furloughed, and I feel I'm sorry and about any situations like that, any upsetting situations. There's one thing we must go along. This whole coronavirus has created an upsetting atmosphere. But how can I utilize this and for the upcoming recession? Because all the analysts state that there might be, there definitely will be a recession beyond the lockdowns we find ourselves in. Strategic planning came into our foreknown knowledge in 1960s, and it was more adapted by the business community, especially under the research of Frederick Taylor. Now, strategic planning is a development process to analyze your goals. So mainly setting your goals, setting an idea about how you're going to achieve something. Now, it's often misconstrued as being a vision to want to achieve something, and necessarily the case, especially as some people would argue that it actually deters or deteriorates one's visions. Now, so if vision and strategic planning are separate things, how can we combine them to utilize it to our best advantage? And especially as a sports science graduate, and I myself a sports science graduate, practically having to learn on the spot, which is practically what we're all doing at the moment, learning from what we can, learning from the situation, learning from our environments around us. How can we utilize this new skill into this new world we're coming into within 2020? So what's the difference between strategic planning and your visions? Well, your vision or your dream or your ideas of what you want to achieve are more or less just that. They are wishes, they're ideas. The strategic planning is how you set about achieving that vision. So that is basically the set difference. You have a vision before you have the plan. And what we're going to do is dive into 10 tips. 10 tips on how to utilize strategic planning. And before we start, if anyone's got any questions, simply whack them down in the comments. I'm going to stop halfway through to read them out and to dictate or maybe answer those questions if I can. it's a new world. It's going to be a strange world when we come out with. Will it be different? I don't know. When you look at something like Spanish flu, for instance, many people don't remember or don't learn about it. So it's quite interesting, that really. But I'm kind of digressing here. We're going to focus on what you can do as sports science graduates. And it might be a bit daunting at first, but hopefully I can give you some ideas on how you can utilize your skills within this world with my 10 tips. And to get my notes to work. Very professional, Adam. Now, why do we do strategic planning? Well, partly it's to increase productivity, increasing our ability to work and get more work in, or work more effectively, not necessarily more work. Sometimes you could be running around like a blue-ass fly and not getting much done. So it helps to structure your days out, structure what you do in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And it's about identifying strengths and weaknesses, setting a direction towards your visions and goals. By not necessarily having a direction, you not necessarily achieve what you want to achieve. And when we look at talking about setting goals in particular, likewise, like I said, it sets that direction. But one major goals they utilize in the organizational industries are OKRs, or objective key results. Now, that's quite popular because Google uses that as their own own ways of setting goals. However, it doesn't really matter at this moment in time or stage what type of goal you use, whether you use smarter goal structure, as long as you use something that you believe could work for you and that it can be reflected upon and adapted if need be. And with this kind of structuring, what we're looking at is a number of phases. So you got your pre-planning phase. You basically, well, I should say, is a 5-phase structure. So you have your pre-planning phase. So these are your ideas, the resources, identifying resources you might need, and then bringing it into the table for a discussion. Your second phase is your strategy formulating ideas. So you bring in what you thought you need to bring in to reflect. And if you're doing it individually, it's literally just a reflection. If it's with a group or a different person, maybe it's identifying that person to talk to. And now you've got you're trying to identify the actual strategy itself. The next one is actually implementing that strategy. How are you going to implement that strategy? What is best to implement that strategy? And fourth is your evaluation. If you like, that's your critical reflection. That's where that comes in. But you also need to utilize analytics where possible, because it's not just point utilizing the qualitative data, although that's quite good. You also need to use your quantitative stats and see where that can help you. So we're heading on to our 10 tips now, guys. If you feel like you're getting a understanding of how this works and you're enjoying what you're doing, simply smash the like, smash subscribe. Any questions, comment down below. Also, I would say, what are your goals? What are your visions? What do you want to achieve through the next 3 months or so and coming out of lockdown? If you like to put that down below and see if we can help each other. Okay, so really the first of my tips really is to focus on now. Okay, quite an interesting one. Why have you said that? Well, although we're aiming for the long term, like we got these long term or medium term goals, we really have to focus on now, especially in terms of earning money. Yes, I did mention that word. It might seem quite demonic, but we're earning money. And you have to prepare yourself now at this moment in time to get through now. Now, just because I'm saying prepare for now and look to survive for now does not necessarily mean that I'm saying focus all your eggs in one basket and don't worry about the future. That's far from what I'm saying. What you need to do is still prepare and find your way to prepare, but it's doing it in a way that means you're able to survive day to day. So when we talk about earning money, and I know with sports scientists and psychologists, they look at it and think, oh God, no, no, no. But it's not a bad thing to earn or want to earn money. If it weren't for earning money, you would not survive, quite simply for that. But it's a means of trying to do it ethically. Now, you're asking yourself, as a coming out of sports grad, and you think to yourself, but there are no jobs around, and especially no jobs regarding my sports science degree. Well, maybe so, but you can create a market for yourself one way or another. Maybe do personal training or something. So, for instance, I've emailed around and I managed to get 2 jobs as an online personal trainer, doing fitness instructing, getting clients, working for Gymshark, that kind of thing, which I'll be starting soon. So when it comes to earning money, you have to find the ways to earn the money itself. What is happening is you've got these trends going along, but what it's believed to be happening is that the market is accelerating. So it was going more to online, to YouTube, going more to online in terms of online training, but it's just accelerated that further. Another question I'm going to ask for you, and only you really can answer this, because it requires imagination, it requires vision, and all of this stuff really is quite individual, quite unique. So it's unique to an individual. So I can't necessarily give you ideas on what you can do, but likewise, think about the skills you've got, potentially, the type of skills you got, and how that could benefit someone. Maybe you could set up someone's live stream or something like that. But you need to think outside the box, because you need to be imaginative, and people with imagination will make the money through this point in time, or even necessarily get themselves particular skills that might not be available through normal means. So the next one we're going to talk about is looking on to the future, and that is your exit strategy. We always hear people talking about exit strategy in the news to get out of lockdown, but potentially, or what is your exit strategy? What are you doing once we go past lockdown? So you've done your survival bit, but how are you going to utilize that survival element beyond that? Now, you could potentially, for instance, start up a YouTube channel or do social media to highlight your own knowledge. That is one way of doing it. LinkedIn, for instance, is on fire right now, and quite a lot of these will end up paying you as well. For instance, YouTube pay theirs for a certain percentage of the advertising. Others have much more complex systems. However, don't expect to get money overnight utilizing social media. Don't expect it. It's a long, hard struggle, and even I haven't necessarily made it yet, but I've gone to outside means through my university in order to earn money that way. But likewise, from the advertising, don't expect it to become, and it might not necessarily work for everyone. That's just one example you could utilize. But what it does do to potentially to an employer is indicate that you have these skills or you have the knowledge. But it ultimately depends on what field you're doing and what you are doing on the screen or recording podcasts. Podcasts are on the rise at the moment. So and they're probably the most accepted form of social media amongst sports scientists. I tell people I do a YouTube channel, and they look like, yeah. And then I'll tell them you can get paid. They're like, what? So it's still a new form. And there's a lot of people, especially slightly older, who don't quite get it, don't quite understand it, or feel like it's just social ranting, no science. Some of it is, to be fair, but I think that's an unfair comparison, really. And I believe that might be changing, especially as people are coming more from social media, coming more into the front. And let's face it, who's reading the journal articles? Not the general public. It's who they're going to respect. The sports scientists or the dude who's got 1 million followers. So there's always that avenue potentially. You could use it as a way of marketing yourself, which is probably the most successful and better way to do it, especially with sites like LinkedIn. However, when it comes to advertising as well on all these platforms like YouTube, there's a supply and demand, and it's not who's viewing is the supply, although that does count. It's the advertisers. So at the moment in time, there's not a demand for advertising towards people because people aren't necessarily buying. So what you've got is if you like, a deficit between supply and demand. And therefore, even though you might be getting more views in your content, the amount of money you earn could be less, for instance. So what else could I do? Well, I could also do courses, and there's loads of people doing free webinars, doing free courses. You can do the Open University, Coursera is another one. Definitely worth doing, I'd say, especially to help you pass the time if you can't get a work from this. And there are areas where work is going to be less available. So definitely go for them. And I'll whack a link in description after this. My next tip is to consume cleverly. So what do I mean by that? Well, consuming a lot of information, although let's face it, I like playing computer games, I like watching YouTube videos, may not necessarily help you or expand your own knowledge base. So there's two real ways you can do this to help you move on and help you with your own strategic plans. Consume content that will help you, but one way to do it is to limit the number of people you listen to or you read. The positives for that is that it helps to keep your mind directed and prevents paralysis by over-analysis or too much noise entering that you can't really focus or really take in all that information. The second option really is the opposite, because if I just listen to a few people, I'm effectively created a filter bubble for myself. Now, algorithms on YouTube are very good, or even on the internet, should I say, are very good at trying to serve you information that they think you might like, which is good. But the bad news is we don't get all the information. So in terms of, and some voices that might be good aren't getting heard. So in terms of consuming cleverly, you might need to go outside and try and get that information. So it'd be like, if in terms of news-wise, it'd be like reading The Sun, watching NHK Japan, CNN, Russia Today, something else, a journal, that kind of thing. However, although we like to think we are good at it, quite frankly, we are not. And although we think we're getting a vast array of information most of the time we are not doing that well enough. So those are really the positives and negatives to both of those consumption. But by consuming cleverly, you cut down on quite a lot of screen time that is negative in terms of your productivity, and it increases your productivity as a result. So the next tip I'm going to say is focus on skills. And write that down in the comments. What kind of skills do you want to improve during this quarantine period? Improving skills, or how we plan to implement those skills after we come out of quarantine, is going to be vitally important for trying to get jobs. And when I mean jobs, in sports science, over 60% of people in the UK do not get a job within sports science. So that is crazy amount of people. So you need to adapt your skills, and you do have skills beyond what you already have. So you can gain these skills through the free webinars I talk about, and also through other sites like may do more arts based that would help you with your online, like Udemy is the one. But my advice is to be a little bit careful because they're not necessarily registered courses. But focus on the skills you have and develop the skills you want to learn. So another thing I would say is invest in yourself. Investment's good. the amount of people watching content, especially like on YouTube, has gone up by 79%. The amount of people consuming content has increased by 66%, and especially increased on sites like this. Please don't die on me. It's going to die. Hope not. Okay. And regardless of what it says, to improve yourself, you need capital. That's right. You need capital to do it. And not everyone has that capital, and that's quite unfortunate. So you need to focus and plan on where best you're going to invest, or are you not going to invest? There's lots of free stuff available. Like I mentioned, the webinars, for instance, free content like this, free learning, and also free. Of course, you could also invest in yourself, invest in your time, invest in other ways as well. And quite self-explanatory, the next step is plan effectively. Practice rather than be proactive rather than be reactive. Think about what's going to happen rather than being react, but also have those contingency plans where need be. And trying to think outside the box. Try and have a side hustle, because jobs are going to be slightly more remote. And if something happens, you've always got that backup available to you. And try and be slightly pessimistic in order to generate revenue or skills that are diverse and multifactorial. The next one I'm going to say is critically reflect. So reflect critically. And there's millennium models out there. I was going to talk about some of them, but as the computer's buttering up, I'm just going to send a link down below. So think about how you're going to achieve something, why you want to achieve it, and then enact it, and then reflect back on what happened. But reflection isn't reminiscing or thinking negatively about something. Yes, if something happens, think about the positive and how you're going to adapt and change that. But likewise, we were talking about critical reflection and why it's important to critically reflect. And one of the reasons why it is very important to critically reflect is that there are no real answers to how you're going to achieve this. This is all interpersonal towards you and ultimately what you want to achieve. And quite a lot of the way the world's going in terms of remote jobs, there is no clear defined path, especially in sports science. So how are you going to create that path? How are you going to create that way going forward? Jobs in terms of sports science are based either at a government or club level. You even do it at national, or working with governing bodies, or you're working with the club. So if there is a recession, that means your job's cut. So what are you going to do to make yourself indisposable, or have that side hustle or protective barrier to protect you from such instances? One way to do it through knowledge, but there's plenty of other ways, and you can reflect upon yourself in order to achieve that. So it's looking at yourself, looking at what you need to achieve, and looking at how you're going to do it, why you want to do it, and a time period roughly, and what happens when you don't meet that time period. You get that big reflective cycle. But likewise, talking about critical self-reflection is a video in on itself. And yeah, likewise, it's a video on itself. So the next thing I'm going to say is to take massive action. Quite generic, Adam. What do you mean by take massive action? So if you think about the stock exchange, I will bear with me. This does have a reason why you do this. So, and this does relate to sports science in a kind of round the houses way. But if I invest a little, there is not much there. If I invest little everywhere, I'm not gaining much. If I invest a lot on one thing, then the chances are I'm going to get a bigger return. And the same or similar process applies to what you're doing. If I try and catch 2 rabbits, I will get none. But what I want to do is catch 1 rabbit, grab it, train it, house train it, get it to work for me, and then able to improve upon it and maybe grab that other rabbit later. So in terms of what you want to do, focus on, let's say, a skill. Maybe you want to improve your motivation or your knowledge of motivation, hypothetically, if you're wanting to learn into sports psychology. Or maybe you want to get into coaching, so you take an extra coaching course or copyright course. You kind of get where I'm coming from here from a education standpoint. Instead of focusing on multiple courses, focus on the one. Apply all your knowledge on that one. Develop that one. Make sure it's in your arsenal of skills so that when you come out and leave into recession, you've got something to back on upon your degree, which you've already have. Now, in terms of, many of you will be thinking, okay, but I want to develop my skill further. Going into a recession, the chances of me getting a job is going to be probably less likely. So I'll go to do my master's degree, and that is a fine idea to do it. If you research only a couple of weeks ago has shown that people who graduate during a recession often have not poorer job opportunities, but earn less money throughout their lifetime of work. And there's many reasons potentially for it, but one of the main reasons is that you earn less and you have to work your way up more compared to those other people. And it could also, because you're earning less, they expect your own workers I almost said owners. It's almost like your slaves. Sorry about that. Your workers, the bosses expect you to earn lesser results. So it's harder for you to get that extra money. So you have to break that cycle. What are you going to do to break the cycle? Quite simply put, what are you going to do to break that cycle? What are you going to do to yourself to make sure you have skills that make you infallible-ish? And this needs to be combined with a determined action within your strategy. And it has to be planned in, but it also has to be realistic. It's not like going to say, I'm going to learn motivation and therefore I'm going to be good at X, Y, Z skill, because it doesn't work like that. It's preventing you from getting like fired kind of thing. Okay, so we're moving on now. And we're going to talk about education. And factoring education from multiple sources is also useful. Also talk about also try and think and talk about yourself with friends about the resources needed to learn, needed to do what you need to do. And sometimes that learning needs to come from yourself, not necessarily from a specific resource in itself. You are a resource. So not necessarily from a platform like, let's say, the Open University, although that's very helpful. Learn and prioritize your education. Prioritize what you need to learn now to help you for a future, but also learn what you need to do now for now. But also, likewise, be careful about crap information. I probably don't need to remind you guys to be careful about crap information. Be careful about the information you consume, and be careful about how you interpret information from yourself as well. So coming off of that, those are my 10 points, really. If you got any more information, simply whack that down below. Likewise, I should say sorry for the technical issues we had there. And likewise, with those 10 points, rewind back, revise them. Are there any points that you think I missed, or any ways that you would think to improve your strategic planning? So I hope that really helps anyone watching. This is Immersive Sports Science, not bro science. End the broadcast. Oh, Christ.